we're going to finish the training with the wrap up. Just a couple key points and reminders, right? And so a lot of the data for end of year 4 is going to be used for compliance monitoring, right? So end of year 1 was focused on a census day and a specific window in time, where this data collection end of year 4 represent the totality of the academic year. And so to ensure that students are receiving the services that are provided are funded and that they're eligible for, the CDE will be doing compliance monitoring. And so your initial evaluations, your annual meetings, additional meetings, amendments to those meetings, triennial meetings, all of these data points, all of this information, your services are going to be monitored, right? And so it's important to update it on an ongoing basis. You should all know that. That's just a reminder slide. Then this was featured in the communications. This was also a slide we pulled from the SIM, and it's just to provide you guidance. It's a point of reference because the learning environment has changed, because students may not be available. You may not be providing meetings in a timely manner, right? And so the appropriate way to report this is to report the delay code, the reason for the delay, and then you identify, right? And so if the parents are withholding the students, that would be a 20, for example, or delay code 20. However, if it was a school closure, it would be 60, right? There's school closure and then there's an emergency. So I think you can see on the slide 60 and 75. I don't remember the delay codes, but basically you're going to identify the delay code, which justifies the reason why the student hasn't had their meeting in a timely manner.
Hey, we may want to pause here. And Brandy, you may want to speak about what is going on right now with the COVID situation.
Right, and actually Shiloh's on as well. So she might be able to speak to it as well. But just so you know, we're having current discussions with your special education data vendors on where these delay codes should be submitted, because typically what you're doing in your systems now is once a meeting is actually held, you're submitting the delay code on the meeting that was held, even if it was late. And right now you don't have the mechanism to do that. So we are discussing some options with your special education system vendors, because I think it's in your best interest as districts and the department's best interest to understand which of those delays were actually due to the COVID-19 crisis and the LEA electing not to hold an IEP versus where parents actually made the child unavailable. So anyway, bottom line is, at some point you will have to report a delay code, but how that's going to be done, we're going to be discussing with your special education data system vendors next week.
Okay, thank you, Brandy.
No problem.
And if there's any questions on this topic, I will give you Brandy's personal email address. No, don't even worry about the chat box.
Real.
Service tickets.
Good. Okay, so
the Brandy support.
Well, Shiloh's here, so both of them can get it. All right, Kyron, this is you, buddy.
Okay, so another tool that you can take advantage of this year, not just for end of year, but I guess you'll be using it first on end of year, is the District of Special Education Accountability Extract. So obviously it's an extract. It's not a report, so it's based on real-time data that you put in CalPad. So what does this do? It basically helps LEAs determine a student's District of Special Education accountability. It identifies a student if a student is being sent to another district, or you are receiving the student from another LEA. So there's this index, there's this accountability attribution status that marks that if a student is marked as sending, that means that the student is enrolled in the LEA requesting the extract and has a different LEA for the student's District of Special Education accountability. And then receiving means, which is the other way around, it's enrolled in a different LEA, then the LEA requesting the extract, and then the student's District of Special Education Accountability is the requesting LEA. So this is a tool you could use to basically monitor who is the DSEA for the student receiving services. But this is not available for charter schools because students with disabilities do not have accountability attributed to other LEAs.
Kyron, can I just say one thing about this?
Yes.
So the reason it's important, once this extract becomes available, the reason it's important to review the District of Special Education Accountability is because the California School Dashboard, if in fact the state statute is not waived and we have to produce the fall of 2020 dashboard, all accountability for students with disabilities, excluding those students attending charter schools, all accountability for all of the indicators in the California School Dashboard will be attributed to the District of Special Education Accountability. So it's really important to understand which students you are losing accountability for, meaning you're sending it to another district, or you're actually receiving those students because you cannot see their data. It's actually the data, the reporting LEA that's submitting all of their data. So it's very, very important that you review this extract.
Otherwise, you're going to be surprised.
Exactly.
Yes. And so once the functionality is up and running, I believe on the next sprint, Nate? Let me just, okay, there you go. Just like any other extract, you just go to the extract section and you will have a DSEA extract button as shown by button number 2. And then you'll have a modal. It's pretty straightforward. Just choose the academic year and then name the extract and then request a file, and it should come up on your submitted extract section. And this will be available on the next deployment, I believe, if it would be ready by then. So, but that's the timeline for this, and take advantage of this tool. And then aside from this, you also have the accountability and monitoring. And we have here the report 16.7 and 16.8. Just be aware, these reports here are ODS reports, meaning if you made changes today, it requires an overnight snapshot process to get updated. Okay, and it's based on active enrollment too. So for 16.7, it reports accounts the number of students with disability with an active IEP by the number of late annual meetings, late triennial meetings, and those with or without transition goals. Now, if you run 16.8, 16.8 report shows that the students with an active IEP who had at least one late annual or triennial meeting and those students with Part C initial and Part C initial evaluation, where 60 days passed from parental consent before they were evaluated. 16.7 and 16.8 may not match because 16.7 does not include students who were 60 days past or beyond from parental consent before they were evaluated. So just be aware, it's not a one-to-one. The student list 16.8 might not match 16.7. So these are some of the tools you could use to monitor, the status of your special education data in CalPADS.
Thank you, Kyron.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get back to the PowerPoint. All right, that was kind of impromptu. Kyron felt that it was important, but we did not have a slide for it, so we'll have to add it Anyway, end of year 4 requires, these are just reminders, right? End of year 4 requires the submission of 3 file types: the special education program, the student services, and the post-secondary status, right? And all of these have to be posted to be in CalPADS. Students with disabilities data should be updated on an ongoing basis throughout the year. SEDS data coordinators have been great about this. The data in end of year 4 is reflective of the entire academic year, so it's a difference between fall 1. The PSTS files created from a survey results from students who left school the previous academic year without a subsequent enrollment, and then previously disabled IVRs and CVRs from fall 1 will be reactivated for end of year 4. So we know that. So again, a reminder of the certification process. It's 2 steps. You need 2 approvals before your snapshot will be considered certified. Okay, maybe the animation's off, but there will be emails anytime there's an approval or disapproval of a snapshot between the SELPA and the LEAs. And then we have an end of year 4 checklist. These are things that you want to make sure that you do. Ensure that all students receive parental consent for evaluation and were enrolled in your LEA from July 1 to June 30 are represented in your child counts, right? So this is a report review. You want to be looking for those records. Ensure services have been submitted for every student that is on an IEP, IFSP, or ISP. Ensure that special education program exits are populated for all students who are not or no longer eligible for services. Ensure all students with disabilities who have exited secondary education have been surveyed for their post-secondary status outcome, and responses have been reported appropriately in CalPADS. And again, that's coming from the SEDS system. And then review your District of Special Education Accountability extract. So there are some considerations, right? And so since EOY 4 submission only requires special education data to be submitted from your special education systems, what is your role if you're a CIS data coordinator? How do you facilitate? What responsibility do you assume? When administration has questions, are they coming to you, right? And so we want to make sure everyone understands their role. You want to make sure that you as a data coordinator, whether you're SEDS or CIS, you know your counterpart. You both need to have communication with the SELPA. Again, don't rely just on the SEDS data coordinator's relationship with the SELPA. If you are a CIS data coordinator, you need to establish a relationship with your SELPA contact as well. What's your role during the certification process? What steps are you going to play? Are you going to provide authority and authorizations to your SEDS counterpart, or are you just going to be the button pusher? Just got to think about that. And what does your SEDS counterpart require? What do they request? What is the responsibility of EOY 4 if it's not certified? So if the consequences come down to it's not being certified, what is your role? How can you help? Who do you answer to? And then how can I assist in error resolution, right? And this is the value that we're going to bring. Those of us who have been doing CalPADS for years but lack the special education knowledge, we can assist in error resolution. That's where we can be of value. And then again, there's learning opportunities, right? Build on what your challenges were from fall 1. You understand the different errors when they were presented. How are you going to overcome those? The communication boundaries, right? So do you have access to CalPADS and your SEDS? Can you get access to CalPADS and your SEDS? If you're a SEDS data coordinator, you have CalPADS access. Do you ever log in? Do you look at certification reports? Do you look at certification errors, or do you just rely solely on your SEDS system? Do you maintain special education data in your system? If so, it should mirror your SEDS system, right? There's other reasons why you may have special education data in your SIS, although it's not used for reporting. If you do maintain that data, it should mirror, it should be accurate to what is in your SEDS system. How do you import special education data from system to system? Those are things to consider, right? Then again, coordination between the different entities, involved in this submission? Do you understand the certification report and review process? And so service desk ticket, or if you remember, Kyron did a demonstration of the user manual, which goes into it at great detail. And then you need to set your internal milestones and timelines, right? Because there may be staff unavailable to you. And so you don't want to just adhere to the CalPADS deadlines and timelines. You want to set your internal timelines. And so with that, we do provide suggested milestones. And so currently, the data population should be ongoing from your said system, right? You should be updating data until it has been completed. And then at that time, and we hope that is prior to the middle of June, right? So between now and the middle of June, not only are you completing the data population in your local system, but you're updating those areas, those records as they come, as they are completed. You're submitting the information for those 3 files into CalPADS. So by the end of the middle to the end of June, you want to be looking at your certification errors. You can look now and get a preview of what you're dealing with, but you want to do the majority of this resolution after your data submission is complete. And then after you review your errors, you want to start the review process of your reports. And then by the beginning of July, you want to be disseminating these reports out, right? This is locally at your LEA. So your special ed program people, you want to be making sure your administration, you want to have them reviewing your reports, looking at 16 series and the 17 series, right? And then by the 3rd week in July, hopefully you have approved, you've gotten the feedback from your administration and your special education program experts, and you are ready to approve. And so therefore the SELPA, who should already be reviewing the reports, can approve your revision by the deadline, right? And so you give the SELPA time to do their final reviews, and if there's any adjustments that need to be made prior to the deadline, that giving them more than a week is the time that they can communicate with you and you can make your changes. And then again, there's always an amendment window period. Well, there's not always, but this particular submission, there's an amendment period, right? And that's the month of August, 8/1 to 8/28. There's a lot of things going on in August, and so it's imperative that you want to meet the initial deadline in July, right? There's cohort that's sequential, it's concurrent with end of year 4 submission window, fall 1 starting up. You're going to have LPAC testing. There's just a lot going on in August, preparing for the new school year. I mean, things more important than data reporting is actual how students are going to be served given the current situation. So you want to do this as soon as possible, right? And just remember that EOY 3 and end of year 4 will require the SELPA approval. Can't say that enough. As always, several resources are provided to you in addition to training. There's if you don't have access to Bridge, there's a YouTube channel. You see the link there. So those of you who don't have access to Bridge, we apologize that they can't attend the live training. We'll figure something out in the future. However, we do record these meetings, and when they're recorded, they're placed on YouTube. Then you have the user manual. There's a link to the user manual. And then, of course, the CDE documentation page, which has all the resources. As always, there's several ways to contact us at the service desk. The service desk is always your point of contact. So while we joke and laugh because we rely so heavily on Shiloh and Brandy for their knowledge and information, the appropriate way, if you have any type of question related to CalPADS, is to use the service desk. We will route the tickets to whoever's appropriate. And so just understand that, you know, it's not just Brandon and Shiloh. There's a whole staff at CDE who can answer and respond to your questions related to special education. And then any functionality questions we can handle on the service desk. We're pretty confident in that. So the important note is the very first link at the top is the web form. And if you're unfamiliar, using this web form allows us to track not only your current requests, but any previous requests. It allows us to include you into our client management system, in which we know your name, your number, your contact information, what systems you're using, so on and so forth. So I do encourage you to use that at the top. And then at the bottom is the CSIS listserv. And while you all in attendance should be signed up for the CalPEDS listserv, so you can get flash messages and announcements disseminated to you, the listserv is a way that LEAs talk back and forth with each other. And quite honestly, it's probably underutilized between our SEDS data coordinators, because this is, if you're experiencing something in SACE, another SACE user can talk you through it. Or if you're using CSIS, another CSIS user can talk you through it. And so that listserv is an important tool. And then last but not least, please complete the survey. Your participation in the questionnaire that began today's training was great. And so as you're completing today's survey, if you would just expound on the things that you provided to us. Well, you know, what you would like to have seen in today's training, what was missing, what needs to be explained better, if you had any technical difficulties, if the timing was off, whatever we can do to make today's training more informative, a better environment for you, that would be great. We'd appreciate it. So please complete the survey. We just want to thank you all. We want to make sure that we thank Brandy and Shiloh for being available for us today. And thank Martha for supporting Kyron and myself. But most importantly, we want to thank you in attendance.
Yeah, thanks for
And
coming.
also,
And
Thanks,
Marshall.
guys. Great
oh,
job.
Marshall.